Nestled in the shadow of the Cascade Mountains, Bickleton, Washington, is a town forgotten by time. With a population barely scraping 300, it's a place where the streets are lined with moss-covered cobblestones, and the air carries the scent of pine and damp earth. To the occasional traveler passing through, Bickleton seems quaint, even picturesque. But the townsfolk know better. Beneath its idyllic surface lies a darkness that has haunted the town since the late 1800s. In 1887, Bickleton was a booming logging town. The forests surrounding it were dense with old-growth timber, and the town's economy thrived on the backs of men who worked from dawn till dusk felling the massive trees. Among the settlers was a man named Elias Grimsby, a charismatic yet secretive figure who claimed to be a prospector. He built his home on the outskirts of town, a grand estate that quickly became the subject of gossip. Grimsby's house was peculiar, with its spires and gargoyles carved from dark wood. Stranger still were the nights when faint chanting could be heard emanating from the estate. When asked about it, Grimsby would laugh it off, attributing the sounds to the wind or drunken workers. But when people started disappearing, suspicion fell squarely on him. One of the missing was young Clara Winslow, the mayor's daughter. Her disappearance spurred a mob to storm Grimsby's house. Inside, they found no trace of Clara but stumbled upon a hidden chamber beneath the floorboards. The room was lined with strange symbols carved into the walls and a stone altar stained with blood. Grimsby was dragged into the street and hanged on the spot. As his body swung from the gallows, he cursed the town with his final breath, "I'll return, and you'll all pay for your ignorance. Your children will know my wrath, and your streets will run red." For decades after Grimsby's death, Bickleton seemed untouched by his ominous proclamation. The logging industry slowed, the population dwindled, and life carried on uneventfully. But by the mid-20th century, things began to change. Children started going missing, just as they had in Grimsby's time. At first, it was blamed on wild animals or accidents in the woods. But then the sightings began. Shadowy figures, glimpsed in the forest at twilight. Whispers carried on the wind, calling children by name. Some spoke of glowing red eyes watching them from the darkness. The disappearances escalated in the 1980s when 5 children vanished in a single summer. Searches turned up nothing, and the town descended into paranoia. Parents refused to let their kids outside after dark, and rumors swirled of an ancient evil, one that had lain dormant but was now awake. Today, Bickleton is a ghost of its former self. The few residents who remain keep their distance from the old Grimsby estate, which has fallen into ruin. Yet, the curse still lingers, and every so often, someone new arrives in town, ignorant of its dark history. One such newcomer was Elise Carver, a journalist from Seattle. She had come to Bickleton after hearing about its strange history, hoping to write a feature for her publication's Halloween edition. Elise was skeptical of the supernatural but fascinated by the stories. She rented a room at the Bickleton Inn, the town's only remaining hotel, and spent her days interviewing locals. Most were tight-lipped, offering only cryptic warnings. "You'd be wise to leave before nightfall," said Margaret, the innkeeper, her voice heavy with worry. "Grimsby's spirit doesn't take kindly to outsiders." Undeterred, Elise decided to visit the old Grimsby estate. She made her way there as the sun began to set, the sky painted in hues of orange and purple. The path to the estate was overgrown, and the house itself loomed ahead like a skeleton of its former grandeur. Its windows were shattered, and the front door hung ajar, creaking in the wind. Inside, the air was thick with mildew, and the floorboards groaned under Elise's weight. She explored cautiously, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. The walls were covered in faded symbols, the same ones described in the account she'd read. In the center of the house, she found a trapdoor, partially hidden beneath a tattered rug. It opened with a reluctant creak, revealing a ladder descending into the earth. Against her better judgment, Elise climbed down. The hidden chamber was much as it had been described, symbols carved into the walls, the stone altar in the center. But what caught Elise's attention was a journal lying on the altar, its leather cover cracked with age. She picked it up and began to read. The entries were written in Grimsby's hand, detailing his descent into madness. He spoke of voices from the forest, promising him power and immortality in exchange for blood sacrifices. The final entry read, "The pact is sealed. My return is inevitable." Suddenly, the flashlight flickered and died, plunging the chamber into darkness. A low, guttural growl echoed through the space. Panic surged through Elise as she scrambled back up the ladder, the sound of footsteps, not her own, following close behind. She burst out of the house and into the night, the forest alive with unnatural sounds. Red eyes glowed in the shadows, and the whispers grew louder, calling her name. Elise ran, branches clawing at her clothes and skin, until she reached her car. She didn't stop driving until she was miles away from Bickleton. Elise's story was never published. Her editor claimed it was too fantastical, dismissing it as fiction. But Elise knew the truth. She had seen the evil that resided in Bickleton, an evil that defied logic and reason. Today, Bickleton remains shrouded in mystery. The Grimsby estate stands as a decaying monument to its dark past, and the curse endures. Travelers passing through sometimes report strange phenomena, shadowy figures on the roadside, whispers carried on the wind, and the unmistakable feeling of being watched. Few dare to linger, and those who do often regret it. For in Bickleton, the past is never truly buried, and the evil that began in the late 1800s still resides, waiting patiently for its next victim.